Hi there,
Hi
we're
there.
Sean and Allison from Spoken Garden, and we're partnering with Eden Brothers to help you in your garden.
Yep, we're going to show you how to plant your daisy seeds step by step today.
Yeah, but before we get to that, it's really helpful to know that daisy seeds can actually be sown in spring, summer, or fall season, depending on your hardiness zone.
Yeah, and you're going to need to site them correctly, so they like to grow in full sun, in well-draining soil, and in a protected area from the winds. Now, before we show you how to sow these daisy seeds, we want to let you know that daisies generally are perennial plants and they're hardy in zones 4 through 9. Now, daisies come in a lot of different colors, and they come in pinks, whites, yellows, oranges, and reds. Now, the daisies we're going to show you how to sow today are oxeye crazy daisies, and they have a white frilly flower with a yellow center. Now, daisies will establish their root systems in the first years of growth, and then in the second year, that's when you'll see their first flowers. Daisies grow about 3 feet tall, and they bloom all summer. They're drought tolerant, they're heat tolerant, and they're poor soil tolerant. If this is your first time growing daisies, you need to know that they are great pollinator attractors, especially for bees and butterflies. And daisies are great for container gardening, cut flower gardening, and for accents of white around your garden.
So before we show you how to actually sow your daisy seeds, it's helpful to know when to sow them so you can plan ahead and have a schedule for when you want to get them in the ground. So like I mentioned at the beginning of the video, daisy seeds can be direct sown in either spring, summer, or fall season, depending on your hardiness zone. So you need to be aware that the seeds actually germinating is dependent on the frost. What that means is if you're going to sow your seeds in spring season, you want to make sure that you sow them at least 2 weeks after your last spring frost date. If you want to sow your seeds in the fall, you want to make sure that you time it out so you're sowing them at least 2 months before the first expected fall frost date. All right, let's get these oxeye crazy daisy seeds sown. The first step is to get your soil ready for planting. You can see we're using a container here, and it's full of well-draining potting soil, high in organic matter. The next step is to get ready for sowing, which means we need to know our planting depth and the spacing for the seeds. For the spacing, crazy daisy seeds need to be spaced 6 to 8 inches apart from each other. So we're going to use a hori-hori knife to measure that accurately. Now that the spacing is figured out, we need to move on to the seed depth, and it's so important to be accurate. That's why we use a tool, and there are a lot of different tools available. This is a dibber that we've created called the Dibby XL, but you can also use a chopstick or a knife or some type of other tool to make your planting holes. Now, oxeye crazy daisies need to be planted at a depth of 1/4 of an inch deep, and that's all. In general, other daisies will probably be closer to 1/8 of an inch deep, so that's very, very shallow. It's very important that you don't overcover your daisy seeds with soil because they need light to germinate. So let's go ahead and make our planting depth holes to be accurate at 1/4 of an inch deep. Next, carefully remove your seeds from the packet and drop 1 to 2 seeds per planting hole. If you're thinking about broadcasting your seeds, that's a little bit different. Use a hoe or a rake to scratch the top of the soil and then toss the seeds on top, only covering them about 1/8 of an inch of soil to protect them from the feeding birds. If birds aren't a problem, don't cover the seeds at all. But you can press the seeds into the soil a little bit before you water them. Next, carefully cover your seeds with soil very lightly. We're going to use the other end of our dibber tool, which is called a widger. Finally, gently moisten the top of the soil to start the germination process. And that's how you sow your daisy seeds.
Now, in the next few weeks and months, you're going to need to make sure that you consistently water your daisies. Now, this can be easily done by just using your finger and sticking it in the soil down to about 3 inches and checking for any moisture in the soil. If there is moisture in the soil down to 3 inches, you don't need to water right away. If you don't feel any moisture down to 3 inches in your soil, then you're going to need to water your daisies in. Now, after your daisy plants have grown to about 6 inches tall, it's a really good idea to put some mulch around them and in the container like here or out in a garden bed. This will help you to retain moisture in the soil to make it more readily available for your plants and be more consistently available for your plants. It'll also help with weed suppression. Now, during hotter or drier times of the year, make sure to supplement your water with more watering so your plants don't get too dry and they continue to grow and develop. Also, watch for pests and diseases at this point. Now, some quick notes about growing daisies for cut flowers. You need to make sure that the daisy stems are 12 to 18 inches long before you harvest them at a minimum. They can be longer, but this is a minimum length you need to cut them at. Daisy flowers can last up to 2 weeks after harvest. You want to make sure that you harvest your cut flowers in the early morning after you're done watering, so this is when the plants are the least stressed and the stems are the strongest. Now, if you need more flower growing, planting, or harvesting tips, you can always go to EdenBrothers.com and check out their planting guides.
We hope this video was really helpful for you in planting your own daisy seeds. And from us at Spoken Garden and Eden Brothers, thank you so much for watching.